And I know I didn't put out a video yesterday, and I know I didn't put a video out today, so I decided on my road trip home to talk about the last couple days over at the Thrive Studios in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, I know there was some criticism from certain people saying, Jason, how could you dare go talk to these people? Oh, they're Trump supporters, or, they're into the Qanon nonsense. You know what I saw? The vast majority of the folks that I talked to were well-meaning people that heavily opposed this great reset agenda as they understood it. Okay? You got to understand, I've been playing chess for a while. Okay? A lot of these people aren't even playing checkers yet. They're playing Connect 4. You know what I'm saying? That they're blinded, one, by the two-party system. Two, in many cases, I think, by their religious beliefs. And three, unfortunately, just an ignorance of what's been going on historically in this country, really post-World War II. Okay? And, I'm going to talk about some of the highlights, but I want to talk about Mike Flynn first. Because unbeknownst to me, Mike Flynn actually attended both days, spoke both days, and I gotta say, he was highly accessible. Okay? Let me start there. I did not personally speak to Mike Flynn. I was hoping today, as he wrapped up the little conference that was at Clay's establishment, and these things ran from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., so I'm actually pretty well on my way to the road. I wanted to ask him because earlier in the day, he had actually mentioned the New World Order, said it was indeed not a conspiracy theory, and talked about it as global governance in nature, very briefly, right? So, my question to Mike was going to be, Mr. Flynn, I made a film now 12 years ago called Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined. In my research, the historical connotations of that term reach over a century. I'm wondering when you not only became aware of it, but when you viewed it as a reality, and why? And I think that's a pretty damn good question. And I intend to ask it. Here's the thing. I want to do an hour-long sit-down with the guy. Because, there are many people out there, kind of on both sides, right, that have their problems with Flynn. And, look, I don't know what it's like to be in the military. He did briefly go over one of the questions I would ask in this hour-long interview as to when he actually joined the military. Okay? He, I guess he joined in 1980, 81, somewhere in there. So literally right around the time, I'm a toddler. And, he talked a little bit about, some of the problems within the structures and where the military was. And really even, this being very much a transhumanist movement, and that no matter what is done, it's happening. Okay? And I liked how he was clear about that. He goes, look, whether you like it or not, this is coming. It's not going to happen. The question is, what are we going to do about it, and how are we going to handle it? And in a lot of ways, I agree with that, right? Because I'm talking to so many people at this thing, and there are still people out there that are talking about how we're going to save the country, and we're going to get our Constitution back. They think we're going to have a system of checks and balances again. And that's just fiction. That is, I'm sorry, it's fiction. We're not. We've lived in, unfortunately, a national security state post-World War II that gradually, as that grew, our Constitution and Bill of Rights slowly began to be torn up and eventually, right now, have become eviscerated. Completely and totally eviscerated. So, Mel K was there. It's the first time that I've met Mel in person. She was there with her boyfriend, and she and he and a few other people actually went to a place called Maggie's Music. Awesome venue. I had a really good time there. But while we were discussing these things, you know, basically they were throwing around the idea that they thought we could win and get our country back. And I sadly said, look, I wish I could agree with you, but right now I really feel like this is the battle for humanity. And the real fight right now is to make all, and I mean all, human beings realize that no matter what nation state they are in, no matter what religion they ascribe to, and that the end goal is not only to fight these people tooth and nail, but remain human. Let me say that again. Remain human. Not allow these people to disconnect us from our very essence, our very spirit, what some may call a soul, that is the collective humanity that is really built on the love for one another and the nuclear family, in my opinion. And that's not to say that you can't love somebody who is outside of your nuclear family and treat them that way. In fact, I know you can, right? But it is the human family of which I am so concerned, okay? So, the vast majority of this stuff was trying to, put podcasters with people that could sponsor them with products that, you could be proud to be sponsored by, or, in alignment with a lot of these political beliefs. And then also the technology of how to do certain things. I certainly fielded a ton of questions and got into a ton of conversations just because of my knowledge of hardware, software, streaming, thumbnails, etc., right? But this gentleman, I forget his name. I have a whole book with all these different names and emails and phone numbers. This gentleman, he began to talk about basically how in 2008 he and another FBI officer were commissioned to look into the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamic funding of quote-unquote terror groups, okay? And his presentation was long, all right? And it basically came down to this idea that the communists and the Muslims had come together to usurp the nation. And that he had presented this material in front of high-level intelligence officials time and time and time again, including directors and former directors of the NSA, the CIA, okay? And he actually showed a piece of documentation signed off by James Woolsey, former head of the CIA, excuse me, and 3 others claiming ignorance, okay? Saying we were unaware of these things and we should have been aware. I call bullshit, okay? I call bullshit. I have no reason to trust James Woolsey. If you look at how this radical Islamist movement began, then took hold in this country, it actually took hold via an alliance with bin Laden, with the Pakistani ISI, right? Oh, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. In the 70s and 80s, we did that. And never once did I hear about U.S. intelligence. Never once did I hear about Israeli intelligence, okay? The one thing that he talked about was an ISIS commander who had been trained in the United States several times over, and it was glossed over. And I'm thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. And finally, at the end of the presentation, Dr. Rashid Buttar, who I assume many of you are familiar with, because he was literally banned everywhere during the COVID 1984 nightmare for daring to speak on his medical experiences and credentials. Okay, Dr. Rashid Buttar. And unbeknownst to me, obviously, you know, I only peripherally followed the gentleman. He's a Muslim. And, you know, he stood up and he said, you know, this is highly offensive to Muslims, especially the way he presented it, and challenged the guy on it. And I was so happy he did that. All right? I mean, I wanted to stand up, but again, it was time sensitive, and I wasn't trying to pick fights. I wanted to stand up and say, you know, how can you say these things when Ayman al-Zawahiri is in videos with bin Laden pre-9/11? We were told he was the head of Al-Qaeda, okay? And he's still making videos. That's right, 20 plus years later, he's still making videos. They told us in November of 2021, we got him! We finally got him! We got him! And then all of a sudden, New Year's rolls around, 2022, and he puts out another video. Oh, not dead! And he recently put out another video a couple months ago. Like, you know, what fairy tale land are we living in? Okay? And, you know, to point to the title of this, I'm kind of exhausted, guys. I'm not going to lie. I didn't get a ton of sleep. These things were early. I know a lot of you guys know that I went to physical therapy for the first time for my vertigo. The day before, the day I left, the day before I got there, so Wednesday, and now we are on Saturday. I kind of have good news there. I'll say this. I have not really tested myself too much, but I did not wake up with vertigo. In bed last night, I had none of those sensations, and I've got to think that this woman and her physical therapy not only put me on the path, but maybe got rid of the vast majority of my vertigo, which was crippling. Now, on the flip of that, okay, it's very frustrating that, I mean, basically, I had self-diagnosed myself with BPPV, biproximal positional vertigo, within 48 hours of it happening, okay? Within 48 hours of it happening, I said to myself, you know, these are the symptoms I have, and it's only in this position. I feel healthier. Thank you so much. I do. I feel a lot better. You know, I'll tell you what, Wednesday was devastating after the physical therapy. I felt awful. And I was like, how am I going to get on the road tonight? I did not like it. But again, the frustration is, within 48 hours, Jason Bermas, college dropout, okay, not a medical doctor, did his own research and came to the conclusion that it was more than likely BPPV. And I went to a clinic first, and I mentioned it. No response on it. They sent me to an eye doctor. I went to the eye doctor twice for 2 different tests. I mentioned it twice to both doctors. Nothing was done about it. Okay? Then I had to get a primary in order to get to the next step. I get the primary. I mentioned it to the primary. Okay? After I've taken my MRI. So they had me go take an MRI. I'm on the primary. I've already got blood work done by another person. We're talking like 6-7 visits. Finally, the woman who reads my MRI and does a physical on me, and by the way, the one doctor that I really trusted, because all these medical establishments are making you wear a mask in them, and normally I would not bend the knee, but when you're having a crippling, debilitating thing happen to your body, and by the way, I still cannot see well out of my right eye. Okay, that's a whole, I'm going to be seeing doctors after next weekend for that. You know, I'd love for that to go away. I don't know that it's going to. I'm still not sure what that is. But that woman walked in while I was sitting there, and I didn't have my mask on, and she walked in, and I went to go put it back on. She goes, no, it's okay. I'm so over this. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I'm talking to a human being. Talking to somebody that maybe partially gets it. I don't know. But I'll tell you what. I talked to her, and, I told her what I thought it was. We did some of the tests. She asked me if anybody had suggested physical therapy. And I said no, and I that's exactly, I wanted to talk to somebody who would at least know that. So finally, when I got to the physical therapist, all right, she happened to be a neurologist as well. And she diagnosed me in less than 20 minutes. And, 25 minutes later of doing these exercises, and I'm here talking to you, I'm not trying to jinx it, but I feel a lot different. And she diagnosed me with exactly what I thought it was, the crystals in my ear. She showed me the part of my inner ear that the crystals had basically been displaced. Now think about that. I had to go through, I believe it was 6 doctor's visits before I got to see that person. I had to wait 3 weeks. And guys, this has not been cheap. I am about $3,000 plus deep right now in doctor's bills. Okay? That's our system right now. That's insane. It's one of those things where it's like, man, I'm glad that I am making these friends in alternative media and alternative medicine. There are plenty of doctors, both MDs and naturopaths, at this event. And as far as Clay goes, when I talk about energy, the dude has it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. The guy, again, love him or hate him, he's a high energy guy. He's not only highly motivated, but he's probably one of the most organized guys I've ever seen and disciplined. When you saw how that place ran and how many people were there and what his schedules were like, and what he was trying to do for others. It was really a high energy, no nonsense attitude that I really, really appreciate. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to be reaching out to him before the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina show to have him on my show again and talk. Because, I think what he's doing is highly valuable. Now, were there some aspects of this thing that I didn't love? Yeah, I'm not a prophecy guy. I was so relieved when Rashid got up and talked about his Muslim faith. Not because I'm a Muslim, not because I necessarily, know how devout he is, or how he practices, or where that is in his life spiritually, but because, as far as I know, it was really me and Rashid, perhaps his girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure, who was with him, were the only ones that were not Christians, okay? And that's not to shit on Christianity. I want to make that extremely clear. I am not here to denigrate anybody, especially about their religious beliefs, but there was a certain, camaraderie there, because you're watching some of these things that honestly I thought were kind of ludicrous, okay? But what I liked about Clay is like, look, I can bring somebody up here. You can agree with them. You can disagree with them. You can have your opinion. You can think it's total garbage. That's fine. We're okay with that. Everything is not going to be for everyone. And, if you caught my last interview with him, we talked about discernment. And really the only thing I think I would disagree with is the fact that he talked, as Q is kind of like an information center. Let me clear that up, okay? There were plenty of people on message boards that were putting out legitimate evidence and legitimate stories regarding certain issues, such as Epstein, child trafficking, corrupt governments. The problem was that it was all based around what? It was based around this idea that essentially there was a super secret person on message boards, and he was writing in code and prophesizing things that would never, ever happen. Let me say that again. Things that would never, ever happen. And we have to be very, very cognizant of that, period. That none of that stuff came true. And we don't focus on it, and we don't trust plans. Okay? Period. We don't do it. We base our, at least I do. I base my philosophies on things I can prove, okay? Or disprove. That's all. I don't think it's that hard. But then again, for some people, that may be too much. And the thing is that I think a lot of those people were actually extremely well-meaning as well, right? They weren't trying to be deceptive. Don't get me wrong. You had your you had your grifters. You had your people that were kind of just out there to be famous. You had your true believers. I'm not looking at my phone, guys. I'm setting up. I had my GPS turn off while I was doing this. I'm just trying to get my GPS going. That's all. I promise. I promise. Because that's what we're doing, baby. We're on the road. We are 6 hours away from Iowa. Okay? So, that's the deal. And, Mel K, God bless her soul, a lot of people have given me shit for her. And I think that she's a well-meaning person that saw some really dark shit in Hollywood for a very, very long time. She's not perfect, but she's trying to do the right thing. And without her, she wouldn't have introduced me to this group. Okay, she wouldn't have introduced...
In a quarter mile, turn right onto Missouri 73.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been introduced to Clay, okay? And I wouldn't have a lot of the opportunities I have now. You know who else was there? Epic Times. So, they are the Epoch Times, by the way. It's not the Epic Times.
Take the next right onto Missouri 73.
Okay? And they are as Chinese as it gets. Like, the dude was there. And they didn't even hear me talk about politics.
Continue on Missouri 73 for 20 miles.
They just heard me talking about technology and stuff like that. And they immediately approached me, and they gave me their card, and they talked about their TV network with me really quick. And I do want to reiterate, these people are from China. We're talking limited English, kind of broken, that sort of thing, okay? If I can get a weekly show on the Epoch Times, of course I'm going to do it. Does that mean that I'm going to start worshiping Bill Barr and the Republican Party and blame everything on the Chinese Communist Party? Hell no! Hell no! I'm be Jason Bermas. I'm be Jason Bermas all the time. Period. That's it. That would be a great opportunity. And Mel, when she was speaking today, again, did me just such a great service and said, look, one of the things I love about Jason Bermas is he's a hardcore researcher that, when he says something, he shows you the evidence. He doesn't have people on that can't prove what they're saying. And, I'm trying to model myself more after that. And that's great. And that doesn't mean that you don't have people with different views or different evidence. You want as many viewpoints as possible. But, I know that most of you who have been around for a long time know that I don't just jump on the next big thing. I don't talk about rumors, especially recently with the Russia and Ukraine situation, even that whole, venom in the water thing. I don't even touch a lot of it until there's enough evidence out there one way or another where I can actually use my discernment. And if I do leap on something a little early and I'm unsure, I'm not afraid to tell you I'm unsure. If I get something wrong, I'm not afraid to tell you that I got it wrong. I had such a good time at this thing. And it's not like it was a party, you know. It was literally, 7 to 3 the first day, but I didn't leave until 6 because they had like a crawdaddy bake or whatever. I didn't eat any crawfish, by the way, guys. I had some shrimp. And what was the other thing? Oh, he had some gumbo there too. But I talked to so many people. A lot of people ended up knowing what Loose Change was, and there were a few people who, again, knew who I was and were shocked that I was there. But I was able to talk to those people that kind of got it, and then because of that, other people were approaching me going, well, I didn't know about that. Had a great conversation with a father-son team, and we talked about just about everything under the sun, and even got to health and de-aging and NAD plus. And the son was 29, the father was in his 50s, and it was that kind of human connection that we all need. That we all need, where we can admit a little humility. There were things that they were talking about. They were talking about a device that infuses into into water, I know hydrogen's already there, and into your bloodstream, into other liquids, etc. And it's beneficiaries. And it was just a good, fascinating conversation. A lot of the big players on the quote-unquote right were there, right? Let me say, I know Anna. You were there, and I'm like, we're gonna have to get you on the show. Don't worry. Right Eye Broadcasting was there. Okay. A lot of people in that realm. I can only imagine what it's going to be like when I go and do this Reawaken America tour in Myrtle Beach in 2.5 weeks. I mean, it's coming up really quick. I think it's like the 13th and the 14th. It's either that or the 12th and the 13th. I mean, literally right around the corner. And again, I don't have to wait till I get up there and I get to do my Bushnell Elon Musk presentation. And you know what? To Clay's credit, other than Klaus Schwab and Yovel Harari, artists done throughout the entire Friday and Saturday thing, guess who? Elon Musk. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Okay? That is a positive thing. Because the more people understand that this paradigm is false, that it is not the Muslim religion and the communists merging together the threat. Foreign generational bloodlines and have utilized their power and influence to gain the vast majority of the resources. Politicians, government officials, people within the entertainment industry, okay, and beyond, really everywhere in every single aspect of society on behalf of a globalist new world agenda. Right by that is, constantly, I was hearing about fellowships in Israel and, basically how they are our ally. And there were a few people there that certainly did not agree with that. But that is something that very, very much has to be pierced, in my opinion, with the Christian and evangelical crowd. Not because I hate Israelis. It is you have an Anglo-Israeli alliance that has now been so outward against all of the citizenry, based in not only global domination, okay, but the Middle East, like Qanon, data tested methodological tools that are now coming home to roost. Like, think about what Israel is own is. Obviously the Palestinians Palestinian conflict. Issue. But when we're talking about what's or no access, Israel was big on that. Big on that. That's a problem. And again, these people, for the most part, are against all these mandates, and then they can't see that aspect of it. You understand what I'm saying? It's a problem. You know, they don't understand how Iran really went down. Maybe Flynn does. And that's what... All right, we just got kicked off. Sorry about that. Listen, we're on the back roads, guys. Again. Anyway, I'm going to go, guys. Apologize for the thing at the end.